How's it going, y'all? We are here for our weekly anchor message where we are receiving our spiritual lessons and themes for the week that we will be working with. We're reading out of the Wild Unknown Archetypes and the Mystical Moments Tarot. I'm exhausted. I waited on a party of like over 100 people tonight, some of my cohorts, and these were despicable, awful people. They were exhausting. The physical magnitude of it, just the setup, the breakdown, the enormous amount of plates to bring out. I am fried, honestly. So bear with me, but I think I can get this out. So we've been very encouraged the last week or so by Spirit to not throw in the towel. It feels like the desolate wilderness right now. And if you're feeling this, I completely understand how you feel. It feels like there is not a stitch of life anywhere in sight. Like we're standing in this dry, barren wasteland, and it's like maybe like a few dead trees and some tumbleweeds, and it's like, where is an opportunity? Is there love on the horizon? Like money, food, like anything. Like it feels so isolated. And like, is there any sign of life? Like, are we anywhere near one of those, it's not a mirage, but what is it? I can never remember what it's called in the desert when there's like a place with like water and like some vegetation. But yes, it's like when do we get some relief? And every time over the past week or two, I have felt so like completely discouraged and just like giving up, and finding like some kind of real trade or job or whatever. It's like just right before I'm completely ready to throw in the towel, like my angels will send me a clear and just such a clear message that is like, don't give up on your dreams. Like whether it's somebody posts something that's specifically like that, or like a lesson from the Kabbalah Center about being in that third phase of creation where you're just like, oh my gosh, like I've done everything I can, like, and it's still crickets. Just everywhere I've looked, whether it's a meme or a video or, some random sign, it's like, do not give up. Don't throw in the towel. I've had the most spectacular dreams throughout this Pisces season. Every night they're so vivid. Last night was the first night I couldn't quite remember my dream, but I felt like, you can feel the essence of it when you wake up, and you remember pieces, but they're not like you can't articulate what you saw. So I just feel like I'm probably not alone in this. Usually when I'm going through things, the collective that finds these messages are sharing things in common with me as well. So I want us to feel encouraged. And I think that this message is really acknowledging our feelings right now and also encouraging us that we are on the right path. So there was a couple of cards that I thought were particularly interesting. The Mystical Moments is a really unique tarot deck. And a lot of the time I just read these cards 100% intuitively, but this time I wanted to read to you guys from the booklet on two of them because they were pretty poignant in this sort of current mood. So from the Wild Unknown Archetypes, we have the Tear. It's so funny because in regards to the tear, I was just in a conversation with a friend about how she sent me a video of someone who was like taking their tears and putting them under a microscope and looking at the crystallization of the tear, the water structure of the tear. And I was like, I don't create tears. And I think she thought I meant I don't cry. And I was like, no, I cry. It's just that like, my eyes don't get wet. And I don't have that satisfying, like, pouring out water of my eye where it runs down my cheek. And she was like, what? And I'm like, yeah, I've never produced a lot of moisture. And sometimes I'll be crying and it feels like I'm about to get a really good tear. And recently, like, I'm such a nerd that I was like, wait, I think I might be about to have a tear. And I ran over to the mirror to see if I was like having water, and there's nothing. I was like, I have phantom tears. So we got the tear here, followed by the riddle, followed by the castle. Underneath tear, we have temperance. Underneath the riddle, we have 6 of Cups. And underneath castle, we have the Chariot. And also, when I was like just reading the booklet while I was in there, I was like, I might as well read the Chariot. And it said literally, and I thought this is so interesting when the cards like have the same repetition of themes and forms and symbols. It says like she's escaping from the castle in the distance. Isn't that interesting? And it was paired with the castle card. And then the feminine King of Swords is our last card. And in this deck, there is the Queen, the King, and then the feminine King. And so if the Queen is the mastered aspects, the mastery of the feminine aspects of the suit, the King is the master of the masculine aspects of the suit. And the feminine King is like the marriage of the two mastered together. You've transcended both the masculine and the feminine, brought those aspects into balance, and it's like a new level. So the highest court card in this deck is the feminine Kings. All right, so the tear, as you might imagine, talks about a pouring out of emotion, that like cathartic cleanse that crying brings, and grief and sorrow. So I feel like whenever we're in Pisces season, it's always challenging us. I've got ash where I lit my candle, smudge. Pisces season is always taking us through like the final purge of the year that we've just gone through to cleanse ourselves from old emotion, old spiritual baggage, old emotional baggage, things that we haven't grieved, we need to bring to the surface, things that we like distant memories and things from our subconscious come forward, so that we have the opportunity to do one last good purge and overhaul before spring, before the new year starts in Aries. So the tear is very cathartic, very cleansing. And it's definitely something that I've been feeling lately. I've been crying a lot. I've been thinking about the past and things that have happened over the course of my life and how everything's led up to this moment. And then the moment we find ourselves in is so overwhelming in the world right now. I mean, I don't think you can find a place on earth that isn't being affected by everything that's going on. We're being so aware, made so aware of how we're all interconnected and how everything affects everyone, and how, you know, when some of us suffer, we are all suffering. And so, and then when, you know, the leader of the world is so cruel and thoughtless, it affects everyone, and everyone is on edge. So I think we're all having this holy vision of sorrow right now, which is a mystical experience where you see the state of the world, and you see you have a vision of what the world could be and what it could have been, and the reality of what we've done and where we've brought the world and how we've been lacking as stewards. And even the best of us that have the best intentions and do our best, it's like we all fall short. But then we see the cruelty and the evil and the greed and the lust has just taken everything good. And it just feels like I feel so sorry for Gen Zers and anyone who's younger than them, because they don't even get to remember the last time things were simple. You know, a lot of us are so nostalgic for like the 80s and the 90s because we weren't aware of everything. You could run around on your bike and you weren't constantly having someone to compare yourself to, and you weren't constantly driven by the economy, and things were simpler. You could just have a good time. You could go to the movies and, you know, have good memories. And we had bad memories too, but there wasn't like always a war going on. And there wasn't always, like, there wasn't all this mudslinging and dragging people's names through the dirt. And you know, people weren't obsessed with plastic surgery, and you know, things were more natural and simple. And you know, there was an underbelly, right? Even then, a dark underbelly that grew and grew to what it is now. But it was like when the seeds are still in the ground and things hadn't started surfacing yet, all the evil corruption and the plotting and everything, all the billionaires getting way out of control. There weren't that many billionaires back then, you know? It was the age of innocence, honestly. It wasn't, but it felt like it in comparison to now. I can't even imagine the children growing up that are being born right now, what they will have to look forward to. You know, I can't in good consciousness feel like I would want to bring a child into this world because I have nothing to offer them. You know, it's like, what are we going to give them? Faster internet, brain chips, like Google glasses, like, you know, the beaches are overcome with garbage. The ocean is full of garbage, you know, but I do feel that if we can tip the scales, human beings are so creative and so imaginative, and we can solve problems really quickly. And the thing is, in other countries, not America, they're working on amazing things. And there's actually good news out there. Like, they've come up with a system to protect the trees of the rainforest from illegal deforestation. There's these mechanisms on the trees that have like these microphones that are always listening for the sound of chainsaws, so they can immediately call the forest police to come stop it. There are people finding ways to recycle garbage in really creative ways. There are people who are figuring out ways to clean the oceans and do beautiful things. And in America, people are so stupid and cultureless and self-centered that they're not thinking about any of those things. They're not thinking about solving problems. They just want to work for Big Pharma and all of, you know, the corporate structures that already exist. It's like, I don't know. It's so much more hopeful when you hear about things that are going on in other places, you know, and the way that, you know, people have come together and they're working together to solve the world's problems. So I want to focus on those good things too. But it just feels like such a dark shadow is cast over the world right now. And the tears that are coming forth, you know, we're crying for the sake of others. And that's very powerful. And that's a very powerful place to pray from when our hearts are broken, not for ourselves and not when we're in our own self-pity, because then we're in a victim state of consciousness. But when we're crying for others and we're crying for other people and our hearts are breaking for other people, that is such a powerful time to pray for the world. But on an individual level, I think that we are really offloading baggage from the past that we're finally ready to be rid of. You know, if you didn't have closure about someone you never got over, it's like you're crying them out this month and you're done with it, right? If you regretted never going down that one path and you felt like you should have, tried that thing. I think we're all finding that like there's things that are haunting us that just are too heavy to carry anymore. And we're ready to be done with that so we can find our new radiance and reconnect with a brilliance that brings us forward into a new story. So the catharsis of the tears right now, it's like we're digesting that old life so we can be a clean, fresh slate. This is spring cleaning on a soul level. Temperance is with these tears. And I feel like there is this feeling right now of, there's so many dimensions of sorrow coming out. But I think some of us, and including myself, are kind of feeling depressed or struggling with depression because, I'm like, am I failing? Like, am I even on the right path? Have I totally missed the plot? Like, am I using my calling the right way? Am I being effective? Am I making a difference? And so that's part of the tears that are coming. So I'm like, I spend, my life doing these things, and I'm like, is it affecting anyone? Are these messages getting out? I have about 5 people that I consistently hear from, and I'm like, is anybody else even watching these? Or is this just like people that accidentally start the video and then move on, right? And I'm like, literally today, I get up, I needed some extra rest, and I had enough time to get my prayer practice out of the way. And then this morning, I have a little coffee, and then it was time to do my post, write the post for the day that set us up for our reading tonight. I had a little time to work out and get some oxytocin in me, or some endorphins, and then I didn't actually have time to do the short today before work. And so it's like I'm cramming all this in, and then I come home from work and I do these videos, and I'm like, so many times this recently I've just been like, should I just throw all this in and just go get another, like, find a career, but I'm like, no, this is a calling. And right now during Lent, when we are in solidarity with Jesus Christ in the wilderness, we also feel the wilderness, and we're also being tempted by the voice of Satan that wants to throw us off our life path and wants to throw us off and distract us. And I even thought to myself, maybe this is the distraction. And so this is why I wanted to read Temperance to you, because it's not the usual Temperance card. So it specifically addresses life path in one of the lines. I got caught up in the compare schlager that, Marie Forleo calls it compare schlager, because she's like, it's like when you take shots of that horrible Goldschlager drink when you're like a teenager, you get your first hangover and you're like, this is horrible. And I did. I was watching this girl's video. She was talking about all the stuff going on right now, and I was like, I should go follow her. She's got some good things to say, and she's a Nashvilleian. I was like, maybe, I could meet her at some point, as like fellow people that are kindreds. And I got to her page. I was like, oh my God, she's got 300,000 followers. And I'm just like, wow, I just feel like I'll never catch up to that. And I know in an instant you can go viral and all of a sudden you blow up and you're huge. But I was comparing myself, and it just made me feel sort of like deflated. Like, I've been doing this for years, and I've never grown an inch. Like, it's been the slowest process, and I'm just like, but I was like, I can't do that. That's another trick of the devil. If you're finding yourself comparing yourself to others and thinking, oh, everybody's made it and I'm so far behind that I'll never catch up, like, and you think you're following your dream or your goal, like, and your calling, like, don't give up on yourself. So Temperance. This card shows a woman resting in a lush green garden under a red umbrella. Her white dress is a symbol of modesty and mindfulness. Sitting in a yoga position and spreading out her arms, the woman seems to melt into the surrounding environment of blended elements. There is a sense of harmony and moderation here. Her gossamer dress floats like water, showing that everything needs a light touch to stay afloat, to stay in flow. The umbrella crowning her represents the need to take the higher path and stay true to one's life purpose. So yes, there were many times recently where I've thought, I just want to make money. I just want to secure myself and have enough to get by and not worry about money all the time. And I could have an easier job and I would have time to pursue dating more and all of those things. And it would be so much easier. And I wouldn't be under the constant criticism and look like a joke to everybody. But then I was like, no, then I would be turning my back on what I know is true. So don't abandon your life path. The umbrella crowning her represents the need to take the higher path and stay true to one's life purpose. 2 doves symbolize her balanced mind and her equanimity. She has found her peace within herself. Upright meaning is balance, moderation, integration, equanimity, harmony, and blended elements. Now, there were pieces of this reading all throughout, and even in my own personal weekly reading, that just kept re-emphasizing the need for a balanced perspective, the need to not be emotionally reactive, right? Because when I get like this, it makes you, when you get in this emotional state and you can't find your reason and your logic and your level-headedness, it's like you want to make these rash decisions. And so like right now with Mercury in retrograde in Aries, it's like it makes us want to jump to these conclusions and make rash decisions. And we really just need to slow down and wait for ourselves, find a way to balance your emotions and not let your emotions control you. In order to have, and this was what we were talking about last night, it's like in order to have real sovereignty, you can't be controlled by your emotions and your out of control thoughts. And I know when I'm under one of those attacks. I can feel it. I know it. I'm aware of it. I can see it happening. I can observe it happening. But the voices are loud, you know, and it's hard not to listen to them when you're so tired and you feel like you're in the desert and you can't see anything anywhere near you. You're like, well, how much further is it? I can't even imagine how much further I have to go, but it's too late to go back now. So take heart and stick with your dreams. Now we have the riddle card with the 6 of Cups. 6 of Cups talks about looking back on your life and thinking about memories. And sometimes it warns us not to look back at things being worse than they are or being too nostalgic and thinking they were better than they were. And a lot of times it reminds us of old dreams that we had in childhood that are coming back and that we need to embrace again, right? So it's like remembering when you were a child, what excited you about these dreams to begin with. You know, what lit you up about them? What was your deeper why you wanted to do this? I remember growing up, we didn't always have a car that would work, so we couldn't always go to church on Sunday. And so sometimes my parents would watch this televangelist named Charles Stanley. And I remember his sermons, but what I remember more than that were the infomercials for Feed the Children that would come on before and after. And I remember watching those infomercials about Feed the Children while my mom would be making our Sunday dinner, and you could smell the dinner cooking, and I would feel so heartbroken for the children around the world that were in these places with famine and war-torn countries, and I would just worry about them so much, and I wanted to do something to make the world a better place. And they didn't even have influencers when I was a little kid. And so the only way you could be an influencer in my mind when you know, at that time, was to become an actress or an actor, because they would, when they were promoting their movies, they could go on nighttime talk shows. And I remember my mom saying, she was like, "Have you ever noticed they always have some cause that they're promoting or whatever?" And I remember thinking, like, she didn't really get it. But I remember thinking, yeah, because they have a platform that they have people's attention and people look up to them. And so they can influence people to do good things for other people and to try to help people. So I didn't even know it then, but I knew I wanted to grow up and be an influencer. And I thought, well, if I could be an actress, then I could influence people. And so for the longest time, I grew up wanting to be an actor, but it wasn't even necessarily because I wanted to be an actor so bad. It was because I wanted to be a positive influence on other people. And so, sorry, I'm going to have to like wipe my nose with my shirt. So there's also, as we look back, it's not all roses, right? We remember the harder things in our life that shaped us as well. And sometimes we wonder, why is my life like this? Why am I here now and not somewhere else? Why didn't these things work out for me? Why didn't I end up on this path or that path? And why those people? Why did it come so easy for them? And the truth is that everything that we've been through has been given to us as the conditions that would shape our raw minerals into precious gems. These experiences in life made us who we were, and they've shaped us to be the people that we've become, and for some people better and for some people worse. And the way that we chose to navigate those experiences has been the thing that has defined us, not the experiences. And so sometimes when you look back on life, a lot of things don't make sense, and they won't for a very long time, until one day you have this revelation where you might get it and you might not. But sometimes we just have to accept the mysteries of life and embrace what we have been through as the thing that has shaped us into the people that we have become. They've given us our own unique perspective, our own unique voice, our own unique talents and creativity and skills. I mean, think about when a poet who's really, really good tells their poem, and it's something so personal to them. It's the most personal thing on earth is a good intimate poem. But the more intimate and like deeper it is to that person, the more universal it becomes. It's wild how that is. And when songwriters and poets try to write something universal, the less personal it lands, isn't it like that? But there's a poet that I love. His name is Sam Hurley, and you should look him up on Instagram. But his poetry is about the preciousness of humanity and the pricelessness of the human soul and the life that we have and the brevity of it, and wanting to leave it with yourself, your soul resonating and echoing through the ages and leaving that memory behind. But he's such a good poet. But with him, he hasn't led the easiest life. He couldn't have. And so it's like you wouldn't be that talented without the experiences that you've had that have given you that specific voice. And maybe you're not a poet. Maybe it's something else. Maybe you have deep compassion. Maybe you're a nurse, right? And you care so much about people that you go to that difficult job every day, and you're there for 12-hour shifts, and you're wiping people's asses, and you're cleaning their throw up, and you're giving them suppositories, and half the time they're fighting you. They're complaining, they're whining, they want, something, they can't have something, they're mad about it. Like, nurses have a thankless job. And they love doing it, or they decide to do it because they love it. I don't know if that wears them down over time. It certainly could, but you meet these nurses that are just have endless patience. Same with teachers. They have to risk their life every day they go to school anymore. That's something that wasn't like that back then in the 80s and 90s. We didn't have as much school violence as there is now. I mean, the kids now, they're trained to have these drills and just it's like part of the norm. It's just to expect that that could happen. So, the mysteries of life sometimes we'll never understand, and we'll exhaust ourselves and we'll become bitter pillars of salt, frozen, if we try to have closure on everything, right? And we just can't. Sometimes we have to have radical acceptance that things happen the way they did, and you can make that for a purpose. It's not saying that happened to you for a reason, but you can take that and give it purpose, and you can find purpose through that thing, through your healing. You can use that to share with others. And the castle here is interesting. It's got a double meaning. The castle represents opulence and status and stature and power and all the things, right, that I was talking about earlier about, what if I could just leave this and go find, my friend at work. I'm so excited for her. She's a talented musician. She goes on tour. Like, she's devoted to her art. Like, their band is really good, but it's a struggle. I live in Nashville, so I've known a lot of people, and she went to an Ivy League school. She went to Vanderbilt. A lot of people are in what you would think is a successful band, but they still have to work. They still have to wait tables. They still have to be bartenders, because the cost of a tour, you're lucky to break even. You're lucky to make any money off of that tour. And after that, you have to split it between all the band members. So be grateful to the artists that show up and give you the beauty in the world that you enjoy, because they have to work their ass off to make that art, but they also still have to work their ass off to keep the lights on and to keep something in the refrigerator, right? So it's so tempting to just want to throw in the towel and go for the easy life in the castle, right? And so basically she's getting she had an interview for a marketing position that would pay like 6 figures. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm praying she gets it if it's meant to be for her, because she deserves it. She works hard, and she's worked hard in many ways, right? And so, part of me today was like, man, I'm good enough at marketing that I could study it and learn it and master marketing, and that could be a fallback trade for me. But then I realized I wouldn't have time to do this. And it's not just that I am making content to help people diet better or this or that. Like, I want to help awaken people's souls and help them connect to their own soul and do that work in this world, and have a spiritual refuge that they can trust, and get spiritual nourishment from. Because God knows that, you'd have to be very discerning to even find a good church anymore these days. And so there's another thing about the castle. It's like the castle, and here we have the chariot who's moving away. She's leaving the castle behind, right? And she's going on a slow and steady progression. You've got to keep your balance to keep the chariot under control, but she's on a snail, right? So she's going very slow, but slow, steady progress, consistent steps will get you there. And you don't feel like you're making any progress, but then you look back and look, she's already this far away from the castle, right? You're making more progress than you think. Now, there is a thing about the castle where the castle walls are also high and thick and strong, and so they keep the people in there protected, but it also shuts people out too. And so be careful to not become totally isolated in the process, and not to just shut life out and shut people out and shut down. It's easy to feel disappointed by life and just start shutting down, and your light goes out. You don't have joy anymore. Nothing really brings you any happiness or fulfillment. You don't have the same you don't take pleasure in the same things anymore. You start to get depressed, and you start to get isolated, and you start to push people away. So we don't want to close ourselves off and block people out from letting people in either. So it's like trying to keep that heart tender and open, and hopeful. And that's why certainty isn't just some flimsy feeling. It's a choice, and you have to make that choice even in spite of your feelings, that you are that you're being guided and protected, and God has a plan for you, and you're not going to be abandoned, and you're not going to be forsaken. And so we keep moving forward, and we keep believing, and we keep taking one step in front of the other, and we're not giving up, right? And we're not throwing in the towel just for, what feels like it would be an easier, better life, something that's more sure thing, more guaranteed. And I don't think that she is either. I think that she's going to be able to do both because it's remote. And so it's something that she can actually do while she's on the road pursuing the band still, right? But that would save her from having, to be stuck in the restaurant industry forever. So I pray, and I want you guys all to pray too, that she gets that job. And then it's so interesting. This is so kismet. One of her friends that lives in LA just happened to decide to drive Uber today, right? He doesn't always. It's just something he does on the side sometimes. And so he was like, you know what? I don't know why, but I just feel like I should drive Uber today. Somebody that he was giving a ride to from the airport, that he happened to start talking to him. And as it turns out, the guy in the car had just left Nashville, and he was the interviewer for her. He was like, oh, you were in Nashville? My best friend lives in Nashville. She's in a band. And he was like, oh, really? And they started talking about it, and they figured out that that was the same girl. What are the odds that she interviewed in Nashville in the same day? Her friend across the country in LA decided, you know what? I have a wild hair up in my ass. I'm gonna drive Uber today. He picks that guy up from the airport. That guy sings her praises, and then the interviewer was like, yeah, we loved her. Oh my gosh. So I just think that's so amazing that things like that happen. Like, that's a miracle, right? Like, what are the odds? So I have a really good feeling for her, and I really hope that she gets that job. And so the last card is the King of Swords, the feminine King of Swords. And I want to read you guys the other card I wanted to read you. I'm so weepy today. Can't help myself. I'm menstrual, and I'm also have all these other emotions happening. Okay. So the female King of Swords. Instead of a sword, the female King of Swords is holding a large needle up into the sky. This needle is so sharp that the king can pluck the shining stars from the universe and sew them onto her sparkling dress. The king's crown demonstrates that she possesses stellar gifts of intellectual power and mental clarity. She has the authority that compels people to listen to her, and she can see the truth in all matters. The stars symbolize the infinite knowledge that exists in the universe. Mental adeptness, intellectual prowess, insightful, quick learner, problem solver, and ethics. So that is all. And I hope that something in this triggered a new level of hope in you that is renewed and restored. And I hope that you can keep going and not throw in the towel and not feel despair, and not feel like nothing is ever going to happen again. Because sometimes it feels like, are there any opportunities coming? Like, it just feels like crickets right now. But according to Kabbalah, in this creation phase 3, this is the moment where this is the last final test to see if we're going to keep going, if we've really been able to transform, right? When you're feeling like, okay, everything's gone quiet, I feel like I've done everything I can to make this dream come true, and I've got my back against a wall at this point. The universe sends you that final test to see if you're triggered or tempted, if you are going to resort back to the old behavior and the old consciousness, or if you've truly been able to learn that lesson and integrate it and transcend it and show up differently and be a different person. In To Be Magnetic, this darkness, this quiet is called the magic dark. And the magic dark is not being in a rut. There's a difference. You can be in a rut, and that's when you're not really doing the work. You're not pushing yourself. You're not facing your fears. You're not growing. You're not putting yourself on the line. You're not making maximum effort. And then you're in a rut, and that's different. That you need to put the effort in. But when you're putting in that maximum effort, and you've been passing tests, and you've been facing fears, and you've been sticking with it and believing in yourself and not settling for less, that's the important key for both of them. You have an opportunity to take some easier route, and you're like, no, I'm not going to take the thing that's not right for me. I'm going to stick it out and stick with my calling, whatever that is for you. If it's a company, if it's a dream, if it's an art, if it's something you've created, whatever it is, and you truly feel like that's your calling, and you're like, I've got to stick with this. This is that moment. I believe that it's the final test where we're tempted to take something that's not right for us, but we have to stand in our self-worth, and we have to stand in that belief and that faith and trust that God will assist us, that we're doing everything that we can. And if that's part of the divine plan for us, then he will meet us halfway. And so I really think we're in that moment right now. I think that we are in this moment of this wilderness where it does feel like, is there anything that's ever going to happen to me again? Or is it just going to be the same Groundhog Day for the rest of my life? And I think that we are close to a breakthrough, and we are close to something really happening and really removing those blocks and those obstacles. So I hope this serves you well. Another tool that could help you a lot is my 2025 prediction series that I created for you guys. It's in the description box below. You can follow the link to my Stan store. And this is not a subscription. It's just a one-time purchase. It's $10, but it is basically a prediction series for the whole year. And it lays out a lot of the spiritual themes and the different, not just spiritual, but different opportunities and challenges that we will have throughout the year, different rhythms that we will find ourselves in. It gives us some insight and foresight to strengthen certain aspects in ourselves and fortify ourselves in certain ways so that we can anticipate being able to brace ourselves in times of challenge, but also be able to take advantage of opportunities that are coming as well. And be able to do the inner work and not get so sidetracked and not get so dumbfounded and distracted by everything that's happening and so overwhelming right now. So with that series, you will get a yearly overview. There's channeled messages from me and a big Celtic cross spread. There are journal questions that go with that reading to help you set your consciousness and really get yourself aligned with your intentions for the year. It's not too late to start any of this. There are quarterly readings that correspond to each season, with also their own corresponding questions. And then there are monthly readings that have corresponding journal questions as well to help you navigate the weeks through the months. And so even for myself, I've gone back and listened to the months that we've already been through, and it was really incredible to look back in hindsight and make even more connections and connect the dots and have more insight and revelation and get into the depths of like what all of that has meant and how it's been teaching and shaping us through the weeks already that we've been through. And then we still have the rest of the year ahead of us. So it's definitely an invaluable tool. I think it's a really helpful tool to do the inner work and to do that growth, but to also help you in practical, mundane ways as well. So that's only $10. If you want to check that out, is in the description box below. If you had trouble checking out before, I fixed the glitch. I wasn't able to integrate Stripe, the credit card payment processor, so I only had PayPal available. I don't think a lot of people understood to just try PayPal also, but that's fixed, so you can use either payment processor now. All right, y'all, so much love. We'll be back tomorrow for our weekly manifestation message. All right, ciao.